Welcome back to the Notary Podcast hosted by me, Daniel C. Lewis. And today, you're not going to want to miss this episode. We're getting into passports. Yes, we're going to have a person that's an expert in passport application, Christine Wissbrun. You're not going to want to miss this one. Cue the music. Welcome back to the Notary Podcast hosted by me, Daniel C. Lewis. And if you like the podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. This week, we have a very special guest this week on the podcast, Christine Wissbrun. She is the passport manager for the city of Rochester Hills, Michigan. She's been doing it for years. I can't wait to get in. Let's dive right in. How are you doing today, Christine?
Good morning, Daniel. Thank you for having me this morning. It's great to be with you and all of your viewers.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. And let's just dive right in because you're the passport manager for the city of Rochester Hills, Michigan. And a lot of us notaries, we take passports as ID. But I want to get more into that whole process. Can you tell us a little bit about how you began, your background in becoming a passport manager and as well as a notary?
Well, started out 25 plus years ago when I worked in the legal field. Attorneys always need a notary on site. So with that job or that career, we were basically told you're going to be a notary. And I have to say, not disrespecting any of my employers, they don't really tell you how to be a notary. So I have to say I really hold a lot of respect with National Notary Association, because until I came to the city, I hadn't really had a lot of notary education. Had experience with one secretary telling her boss, no, I can't notarize that. The client's not here. And it was like, wow, I didn't know we could do that, because the attorneys would always tell you, hey, just notarize this. And that was like so wrong. And so when I came to the city, one of the other notaries was a member of the NNA, and we used to dream about going to conferences. Wow. And who knew, now I'm going. So it's been a fantastic journey, very eye-opening, because as you know, the world is changing every day. Social things are changing every day. So we've seen some changes in our notary practices. We've seen changes in our applications for passports. So it's been a journey.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. And what would you say your typical day would look like as the passport manager?
Well, first of all, there's no typical day at the city. Just this week, we had some First Amendment people coming in. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but any public place that is open to the public, First Amendment people can come in with their selfie sticks and their cameras, and they will film the area. They will ask you questions. So we had 3 different individuals. It was very calm. There was no issues, because we're there to help the public. So every day there's something different. You just never know. Sometimes the full moon spikes it a little higher than others, but there is no typical day.
Wow. You know, if you go online and look at the First Amendment people on YouTube, there's all kinds of people come in. Usually they have masks on with their selfie sticks, come in there. So you've seen that firsthand.
Oh, they come in disguise sometimes, because they're not comfortable having their true facial character recognition details out there. But, you know, we're there to help the public. So I have no issues with helping somebody and answering their questions, because that's what we do. We serve the public.
That is so interesting, because just from my point of view, if I was in your position, I'm a public official. I'm in the capacity of helping the public. and then a bunch of guys come in with face masks and selfie sticks and saying, "Give me your information." That seems, I don't know, I would feel kind of weird about that, because I've seen that with some of the sovereign citizens people, and I have to say, you have to take your mask off. I have to check your ID. I don't know how you handle that. What goes through your mind when you see that?
Stay calm. First of all, some people are looking for a reaction. So this is where you pull out your best poker face. You may be dying inside and freaking out and everything, but most of the time, as you know, as a notary, we kind of sense the temperature in the room. And if you downshift your own feelings and your own reactions, a lot of times you can diffuse a possible situation. So you just stay calm and carry on.
Wow, you're a lot better than me. I'll be freaking out. I'll be like that duck underwater, freaking out and trying to stay calm and up front. What are some of the most common mistakes that people make applying for passports?
Oh, where do I begin? Because we have a complete website set up where they can even book their appointments online through, we have a software, Calendly, which is awesome. I can't say enough great things about it. But we list out everything on there about what's expected and what you need to bring. And people don't read. That's been the most frustrating part. They show up and they think either we can print off their applications, which we can't, or they don't have anything filled out. They're just like, okay, I'm here. And it's like, it specifically says on our website, you need to fill out your application. I even have those in the entranceway to City Hall, which is open 24/7 because it's a public notice area for our residents. So I actually have piles of them out there right now so that you can stop by anytime, day or night, pick up a bunch. After the kids have gone to bed, which is my highest recommendation, then you sit down and fill out the applications for the passports. And not showing up with checks or money orders, because we have to have a check or a money order. They think we can pay by cash or by charge card, and Department of State does not function with that medium of payment.
Yeah. Are there any changes in the passport processing time or application requirements that people should be aware of?
Well, right now, the latest I have is up to 8 weeks from when the Department of State receives their application for a routine passport book. Expedite is up to 4 weeks from when they receive it. And again, having all of your materials with you, original birth certificate with the raised seal, not a little birth registration card or not the cute little certificate from the hospital with the baby's footprints on it. You actually need one certified by your respective state's vital statistics department, usually an 8.5 by 11 form. I have a lot of nervous clients about turning in their original naturalization certificate. That's a hot topic right now, as well as the birthright situation in politics right now. I have a lot of moms and dads that weren't born in the US bringing in their new little babies, sometimes as young as a week or 2 weeks old, to apply for their passport.
What do you do in those cases?
What do I do in those cases?
Yeah, with if they're bringing their 2-week-old baby in to apply for a passport.
If they have their social security number and the original birth certificate, we proceed because they have all of their items necessary. You don't have, as a parent of a child born in the US, you don't have to be a citizen of the US. You just need to bring in your respective driver's license or your passport from your original country that you call home, and we just go on from there. We're not making any determination whether or not they're going to get their passport. We're just an acceptance agent. Okay. We are checking all the boxes, checking all the forms, and we process it from our end and then forward it on to the Department of State.
And with your experience, with your vast experience as being a passport manager, what tips would you give someone coming in to get the passport for the first time?
Actually, what I tell them on the phone, and that's one of the biggest things that I've told people, and I think it's even on our website again. If you have any questions, call us. You will always get a person at the clerk's office, City of Rochester Hills. We don't just let calls go to an unanswered voicemail. A lot of times, if people aren't sure, I'll even give them my direct number and ask them to call me back in case something was unclear. There's children screaming in the background, they're driving. people are trying to do too many things at one time, call us and ask, because it behooves both of us if you're prepared, because typically it's a 15-minute appointment. If you show up with your form filled out correctly, printed on one side only, you have a check or a money order made out to the Department of State. You don't even have to make it out ahead of time. I'm teaching people how to write checks. So, it's never dull. There's no typical day.
Yeah.
But we're there to help, and we want to help people travel. It's kind of like delivering flowers. It's the fun part of my job, because people are going on trips, they're excited. There's some sad situations where people have probably been told how much time they have left, so they're taking that one last trip with family. You find out, if more than you want to, people are going through a name change because they went through a divorce. I had one lady who just burst out crying because this was the last thing she had to do for her divorce. And I told her, it's okay, it's like a death. She sent me flowers the next day. So it's just taking a moment to listen and know where your people are coming from. A lot of them are trying to do this on top of 500 other things. So just getting them in the right place with all of their tools in place.
Yeah. Now, you are a notary also that works for the city of Rochester Hills. What are some of the challenges? Because I know a lot of our viewers, they are, because you mentioned this at the very beginning, they work for a law firm or they work for a bank. As a notary employee, what are some of the challenges you face as a notary?
I'm very, very blessed that my organization supports my membership with the National Notary Association. Initially, we had some things where they were asking me to do the certification of life for people that are collecting pension checks due to the Geneva Convention, some other items. And there's things under Michigan notary law that I cannot do. We also do not have me notarize anything to do with passports, because again, that could be seen as a conflict of interest. So I do know of notary businesses in the area that I do refer people to. They typically call me the city notary, because a lot of still can't get everybody on board with what we're doing at the NNA where I work. A lot of people just are worried about the individual liability.
Yeah.
And but I'm very, very fortunate that they support what I'm learning. And again, I have to throw it all to NNA and people like you that I've come to know over the past almost 10 years, because you've got to have a support system. And it doesn't matter if you're in state or out of state, because even with some of the memberships in my state, I'm not necessarily on the same path that they are.
What advice would you give? Because you just mentioned something there. Like, if I'm a new notary, or even if I'm a seasoned notary, and I wanted to get into the business of notarizing the passport applications, how would they go about doing that? Who do they contact?
Well, first and foremost, you don't notarize an application. It would be the consents. If both parents can't be present for a minor age child, there's a form 3053 that has to be notarized. So again, I think just advertising yourself and networking with people in your area that you're a notary is huge. I'd had a previous discussion with you before. You can't just apply to be a passport acceptance agent. It's through the Department of State, and it's usually municipal government or county government or your U.S. Postal Service that are your acceptance agents. It's not individuals.
Very good. So what you would recommend is notary saying, hey, I'm available. If you're doing traveling, put that on like their profiles on like signingagent.com or findanotary.com. That's sponsored by the National Notary Association.
Yes, social media. Get involved in your local area. You've got local business networks. You've got the Rotary group, church groups. I talk to other notaries at the UPS store. There's classic shipping. Your banks. I have a lot of banks that will send me notary work because it's real estate and they won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Estate planning can be a challenge sometimes, because I've been encouraging people to call me ahead of time to make sure I'm not doing passports that day, because they're coming in with an estate plan. That means I have to rustle up a couple of witnesses. And again, whether my coworkers are comfortable being witnesses on somebody's estate plan can be a sticky wicket sometimes.
You're right. And I get this question a lot. And I think I told somebody I was interviewing you for the podcast, and they said, you definitely got to ask her this question. If you had this person is a notary employee, but she has a coworker that's a notary that doesn't really follow best practices. How do you navigate that in the whole office climate? If you're a person that are following the best practices, well, what would you suggest to her?
Well, that goes back to your management because unfortunately, you're probably not that person's supervisor. And they don't realize they're individually liable. The company is not going to cover you if you're sued. There is no, this is where your errors and omissions come into play and your extra insurance that you have for that. And all you can do is share what you know. You can't cram it down somebody else's throat because they're either going to listen or they're not. But again, that would be a conversation to have with the employer, the company, that, you know what, this could be a situation. And do they really want their name out there as part of this? You know, we remember the mortgage thing back in 2007, 2008. So it can be really touchy.
Yeah. Yeah. Because one of the situations that I see notaries have, whether they're employee or non-employee, I get this all the time. They would go into a UPS store, or maybe they are a notary employee, and the person says, well, I don't really need that person here. I'll just notarize it. How would you handle that? If you're in that situation, how would you handle that?
When you say you don't need that person there, are you saying the signer?
Yes.
I would just calmly say, you know, you're personally liable and leave it at that. Sometimes a few words are better than going into a whole monologue.
Yeah.
Because they've already shut down if you've spoken to them in the past about their notary practices and procedures. They're already not going to listen to you, but if you just a few words spoken calmly, softly about you're personally liable, makes a person stop and pause.
Now, Christine, I've known you for several years now, and I think you're a big proponent for education and notary conferences. For that notary employee that has never gone to a notary conference, would you recommend them going to a notary conference if they're a notary employee?
Absolutely, because initially my city wasn't sure about the whole conference thing. And then once I was blessed to be a nominee in 2016, I had a city clerk that understood the importance of the notary public procedures. After that, my company was interested in seeing that I go to those. And you're networking with people, you're getting some ideas of how to maybe hone and perfect your own practice and procedures. The notary journal, not everybody in Michigan uses that. I don't understand it, but it's not something that's been promoted. It's not something that's been emphasized. And I can't emphasize it enough because it's really, really important.
What would the Christine Wissbrun back in 20 years ago as a new notary in an employee, as a new notary employee, what would you tell yourself now if you were to be able to go back in time and talk to yourself as a notary employee?
Just because your employer tells you that you're a notary and you can do this, you still need to do your own due diligence. You need to educate yourself because you're putting yourself on every document that you're involved in. And we did a lot of real estate documents back in my day, piles and piles. And you think back now and it's like, wow, all that liability, not to mention your own liability is a disservice to your customers that you're helping. So education, education, education. And you don't need somebody else to tell you you need to get education. You need to listen to that little voice in your head telling you, hey, I better look into this a little deeper.
Where do you see as the notary employee position going in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think it's here to stay. The remote online notarization in Michigan, I'm a little concerned about that because I'm still one of those that I have to have the people in front of me. I'm not sure of a Zoom or a Skype situation. And again, if I'm putting my signature and my stamp on that, I want to be sure what I'm doing. And again, it's not just for me, it's to protect our clients. We have a huge senior population where I live.
Yeah.
And people coming in, maybe they're at an end of life phase and they're getting their affairs in order. You want to make sure that you're doing them a total service and that things are handled the way they're supposed to be.
Any final thoughts that you want to share with our audience?
We do have a cultural fair coming up at the City of Rochester Hills. I have a flyer, which I can send to you, Daniel, and maybe you can post on your, it's Saturday, April 26th. It's put on by our city's Rochester Hills Government Youth Council. Goes along with what we were talking about, passports, our cultural fair. And it's at the Michigan Christian University, Rochester Christian University, excuse me, from 12 to 3 on Saturday, April 26th. This is their 4th or 5th year doing this. It's a phenomenal event because we have representation. We're a pretty diverse community. So it's really awesome to see all the different cultures come together and learn, you know, how to wrap a turban, dancing from other cultures, foods. There's tons of food. There's no cost for this. So it's a nice afternoon from 12 to 3. Bring friends, family. You don't need to RSVP. It's really, really an interesting, educational, but fun event for everybody to come together.
Nice, nice. Did I see something about somebody's playing some music there?
Oh, yes. So my church is St. John Lutheran Church in Rochester. No, what you saw was the music for the prayer breakfast.
Oh, okay.
In our area, we have an annual prayer breakfast, and I think it's the 44th, and it's over at Oakland University. And again, it's all different religions and faiths coming together on the National Day of Prayer. And they so happen to have our modern praise band, the Still Worship Collective, coming to play. So I'm really excited.
Oh, very good. You're always involved in the community there. I think that what makes you so special. You're very involved in the community there. And I think that really, I don't know, this just stands out as a notary professional. That makes sense.
We work elections, passports. And as I always tell people that come to the counter, I live in the city, so you're all my neighbors. So of course I want to help my neighbors and know what's going on.
Very, very good. Final thoughts, Christine?
Well, we have the National Notary Association Conference coming up in June. Can't stress enough, there's a Facebook group. I post in there occasionally about little tips like watching your airfare. There's an app I think I put out there recently, Skyview, that helps you price airfare coming in and coming out, things to pack, car rental, hotel tips, things like that. It's a great time. I don't ever see me missing any of these conferences because each conference I pick up at least 5 or 10 things that I didn't know before. Not to mention you're interacting with your notary peers. I've had people call me from other states that we're actually going to do a signing for the first time, and I'm not her competition, so we could talk it through on the phone. So I can't say enough about how important it is to educate, educate, educate.
Yeah, I think I've learned so much from you just talking to you at the conferences about just that kind of stuff, to travel and stuff like that. I've learned so much from you. You should actually do a conference travel blog yourself because you have so much knowledge about how to do that and how to do that so effectively and efficiently. So yes.
Someday in my spare time, we just have to get through these elections because the election world is changing so much every day. So that's been a whole other challenge.
Yes. You're I'm very happy to have you on here. I've been wanting you on the podcast for a long time, but I know you're a busy person. So I'm so happy to have you. And maybe I could have you back on the podcast again in a panel.
Absolutely. I would be happy to be there.
Excellent. Well, I want to thank you again for just taking the time. I know you're busy. Thanks so much for taking the time for coming. And if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. I can't wait to do the next one because next week's going to be another great podcast. See you next week.
Bye. Thank you for having me.